Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do as far as drawing an action pose, it's almost the same thing I did when I started drawing the standing poses. I'm going to focus on the torso, the body. So in this case, what do I mean? I mean the shoulders and hips. Now, this particular pose is basically the character flying through the air, about to fight someone. What you see is what's called foreshortening, all right? Foreshortening simply means that part of the body is shown on an angle, and what happens is the part that's closer to us will appear larger, and because it's going back into space, other parts will appear smaller. And that exaggeration, if you look at the size of his foot compared to the size of his head or his thigh, there's a teeny tiny little foot hanging out the bottom. Why is it drawn that way? To create the effect of something popping out or exploding towards you. So to draw something with foreshortening, first things first, whenever we draw the body, I like to start with the torso, the chest, and the hips. Now, I'm not going to bog down in all the little parts and pieces or the details. What I want to try to look at is the overall shape of the torso, which is the center of my character over here. I want to look and just trace that around with my eyes. And when I come over to my paper, what I want to do is I want to kind of try to get the essence of that shape out on my paper. So for me, he's kind of in what I would consider, he's almost like a football up top. We've got the torso. If I follow around like this, it's a big sort of diagonal egg shape. The next thing that I'm going to add to it, I'm going to add the hips. Now the hips get obscured in by the leg, but we want to take a look where the hips come in. If I've got this as my egg over here, where does this, if this was a circle, where would it intersect over here? For me, on this back end over there. And a lot of that's going to get covered up later, but I want to kind of get a rough estimate of where the hips are going to be and where the chest is going to be. All right, with this, I could start building around it. Now, to work on the arms, before I start drawing arms, I think the biggest thing, or the biggest issue people have over here is a lot of times is they get bogged down in details. So before I draw the arms, I want to kind of space things out a little bit. I'm going to start by drawing a rough shape of the head. Just like in the picture, I'm going to simply just put a line of symmetry on that head, and maybe another line to kind of indicate where the eyes are going to be. When I look at that head, I might have gotten the tilt a little wrong, but I wanted to see that there is more of this side of the shoulder than there is on the upper side. All right, you can see this is his back of his neck, and then his deltoid. On this side, you don't see the back of his neck, it's just the deltoid because of the angle that we're at. Now what I want to do is I kind of want to just build off a stick figure kind of idea of like, where are the arms going to go? Where are they going to fit? How big should they be? Now because of this angle, this arm might be a little bit longer than the other. I have a couple little bumps here as far as my sort of top of the deltoids go. And if I feel like that kind of is in the place where I'd like it to be, then I could start building a little bit of the muscle in and around it. I'll start with my little ovals. And again, it may take you a little time to refine the shapes, but just like we've drawn them before, you know, thicker up top for the upper arm, thicker by the elbow, and then thinner by the wrist. Then I'll look at how this thigh is jutting out. I'll look for an angle for that and about how big it should be. I'll see like how far does it stick out for the chest. And then I'll add that oval that comes out there for this. Last little bit now is kind of adding this tiny little leg that's coming out the back. I'm just going to rough in a basic shape for where it might be and how big it should be. And from here, I'm going to just sort of lay out the entire character. Now, as I'm looking at mine and I look at the picture, I'm not really thrilled about the head that I drew, and this is why I draw this way. So I have the ability to go back and sort of make the adjustment. So I'm just going to erase them, change the tilt ever so slightly. I think I'm a little more pleased with that. At this point of the drawing, if something looks really out of whack or doesn't look like it's in the right place, this is while I erase and change things over. But from here, now the time is where I can start working on that silhouette of the body. I could do that now because I have a good feeling of where everything is going to go. I can always make them more muscular, less muscular. I can make them thicker or thinner. But essentially what I want to do before I do any of that is really sort of line up where things are going to go on my drawing. And by breaking it down to simple shapes, that gives me the ability to come back later and spend time on the details. What you're going to find as you're working and as you do more and more drawing is that doing the details is time consuming. It's the part of the drawing everybody loves. But if you don't plan out where those details are going to go and how they're going to fit, well, then they don't really mean anything. And a lot of times you're drawing, you'll spend a lot of time working on them, and essentially it won't look great. I'm not going to spend a ton of time finishing up this particular drawing because I want to do a few more, but I think you can see very quickly by starting with the torso, by laying out the basic stick figure of the arms and legs and the basic shapes of things, very quickly I can get the entire pose down, and then I can, once I have the pose down, then I can spend that precious detail time to really get in there and sort of add all the cool things that make these drawings so appealing. I'm going to go again with a different body. We'll go with the one down at the bottom over there, sort of flying right over here. Again, we've got a lot of foreshortening, okay? I'm going to start with that torso. I'm going to try to simplify it down to what it looks like. And to me, if I follow the hips through the stomach to the shoulders, what I see is almost like an arrow, an arrowhead, a triangle. It's sort of diagonal. And that to me would be the angle of these shoulders. One is higher than the other. And then this all kind of comes down into one sort of V. From there, we try to kind of establish a little bit of like where the head's going to be. If I look at where her shoulders are, I look at where the body is, the head's a little bit to the left side of the body and a little bit above our torso. And again, what they do over here is they do some simple lines, an eye line, a little dash for the nose, just to kind of give you an idea of which way the face is looking and where approximately those things are going to fall. I've got, once again, those deltoids. Those are the caps, the roundish caps that you find on top of your arm to connect your arm to your body. Those are important, especially in the superhero, to connect the arms to the rest of the body. And from there, what I'll do is, zoom out a little bit, I'll do a little bit of stick figure work to kind of establish where the arms are going to go. And now again, this is another drawing that has quite a bit of foreshortening, meaning this arm here and this fist is much larger looking than the one that's going back into space. That one's being sort of alluded to becoming smaller and smaller. Now we have her hip going into her leg. If you look at where that's connected, it really is on that bottom side right there. And you've got the hip on the other side sort of going back into space. The leg is bent up here and it's kind of hiding behind the thigh. But the other leg is sort of foreshortened this tiny little bit, sort of to create bigger distance. I'll go ahead right now, start beefing up those arms, and I'll spend more time looking at the actual picture than I do my drawing, so I can see that this part of the arm is a little bit longer than that, again because of that foreshortening. This arm over here would be a little bit bigger. Because it's closer up to us. Now I could spend a lot of time then again sticking with the details and then trying to draw all the rest of the body, but I don't have to. I have the basic pose. I can come back later on and adjust it and change it however I want to. I'll do one more. This one's more of a vertical pose. I did a couple with a lot of foreshortening. I'll do one that has a little bit of foreshortening in it. We'll start over here with this vertical pose. Again, I want to look at the torso, the chest, the angle of this piece, and the hips. I'm going to look at that angle of the shoulders. I'm going to look at sort of the bend in the body and how that sort of cuts into the hips and the midsection. If I don't think this looks right now, now's the time for me to adjust it, change it, and erase it. Now that I have something I feel okay about for the chest, I'm going to look at where is the head and how does the head fit in. Do I know the right place to put it? I don't know. I have to draw it out on the paper and see if it looks right. All of you are capable enough with your vision to know when a drawing looks right or doesn't look right, and if it's close or it's way off. If you put it down and it doesn't look good, well, you know what? Erase it and do it over again. But realize, do I have to move it to the left, to the right, or wherever? Now that I have the torso and the head, I could start with some stick figures, arms. And in this case, this arm is sort of bent, so I'm just going to do what I see. And then legs. I've got one. And the other. Now, when I feel like I have things in the right place, I can mess around and add the thickness to the body parts. Can add the details. I don't recommend anybody draw as small as I did on this one. But what I do want to see is I want to see you guys draw me 3 different and unique bodies in action. You can do the ones that I did. You could pick completely different ones. You can look for some online. Your proportions for the body can even be more cartoony than mine. I kind of try to keep them pretty realistic. But if you even want to draw them very cartoony, that's fine too. But what I want you to do is, I want you to draw 3 different bodies in action. They don't need to have any more detail than I do right now. You could pull your examples or your samples from the ones I've given you. You could do ones that are completely different or find your own. They don't need to be drawn really big. They don't have to have full details or full renderings of hands and feet, but I do need to be able to see the whole pose on them. I did that in a little bit over 15 minutes maybe. I'm going to give you all the rest of the period, all day tomorrow, and probably sometime on Wednesday. There should be more than enough time for you guys to do that. Again, my assumption is that you guys are done with the last project, so you don't have anything else to work on. For those of you, again, who didn't hand in the last one prior to this, this is it.